Welcome to a video prepared by the Stamford Methodist Circuit as an exploration and celebration of all we are as Circuit. I'm hoping that you've all had a chance or that you will go back and look at our Circuit website. I'll put a link at the end of this video. It's a beautiful resource which sets out everything that's going on and everything we are doing as a Circuit. And I really would recommend spending some time sitting with that and just enjoying who we are. So the purpose of this video isn't to repeat what's on the website, but what we aim to do is to go through briefly the history of where circuits came from, their role and how important they are to Methodism, the things that they're required to do, and the things that we achieve together. And at the end is a time of celebration for each of our churches and the connections we have together. So with this brief introduction, let's dive straight in. At the heart of the Methodist Church is the concept of connectionalism. The idea, as described by John Wesley, that Christianity is essentially a social religion, and that if we try to turn it into a solitary religion, we do nothing but destroy it. Yes, our faith is our relationship with God and the transformation of our hearts and our lives. But the support we have and the way we do this isn't by journeying on our own, but gathering together and supporting each other. We see it throughout the Bible, the gathering of people together, of the tribes of Israel who became the vision of God on earth and the people speaking God to the world. The cries from Deuteronomy of God calling us to pass on our understanding of God to our children and future generations. To Jesus calling disciples together in the Garden of Gethsemane, asking the disciples to stay awake and pray for him and pray with him. Going right through to Paul's letters, which continually call on the churches to pray for him and support him in his work as a disciple of God, as well as supporting each other and gathering together in churches and communities together where they will be stronger and God's light will shine out through them. Throughout the 1700s, as the new Methodist movement began to grow and finally to turn into a church in its own right, it began by individuals meeting together in small groups and classes to support each other in the growth of their discipleship. They would attend worship together in the local Church of England. They would also go to the open air services when a minister would come to their area to preach. But Methodism was about claiming your discipleship, not just having religion as something that was done to you, but something that you took an active part in, and you supported each other as you began to move on a journey of faith, moving closer towards God and transforming your lives. These small groups that began to meet, about 12 people in each, then began to connect with each other in local networks to offer a wider support in the area. Local preachers, people who would preach across these groups, began to develop and grow, and ministers who would be travelling the country would come and the groups would meet together to hear this minister preaching to them. These connected groups were to become known as circuits and were the basis of our circuits today. The Methodist Church as we know it today came into being in 1932 when the Primitive Methodists, the Wesleyan Methodists and the United Methodists joined together as one Methodist church. The document which set out what this church believed and who we are as Methodists is called the Deed of Union. And one of the first clauses in it, clause 4, reminds us that as a church we ever remember that in the providence of God, Methodism was raised up to spread scriptural holiness through the land by proclamation of the evangelical faith, and that we declare our unfaltering resolve to be true to our divinely appointed mission. This is a recognition that at the very roots, the very beginnings of Methodism, we weren't just a church brought up because people didn't like the church as it was and existed at the time. Methodism is a church purposely created and raised by God to speak God and scriptural holiness into the world by proclaiming the evangelical, the transformational faith, and that we claim our unfaltering resolve to keep going with this divinely appointed mission. And the way we do this, we do it together, not dividing up into individual churches or individual Christians, but coming together in order to achieve this goal, this call of God, this reason for our existence. And so our circuits continue to exist today, and we are part of the Stamford Methodist Circuit, a group of 9 physical churches and 1 online church who exist not just for the sake of having a church in each of our local communities, but exist in order to fulfill this calling that God has given to us as Christians and us as part of the Methodist Church. The standing orders, the legal documents which set out who we are, explains that the circuit is the primary unit in which we express and experience the interconnection in the body of Christ for purposes of mission, mutual encouragement, and help. The very existence of our circuits and our connection together show the body of Christ at work in the world today. And the purposes of the circuit include the effective deployment of the resources of ministry, which include people, property, and finance. From this calling of God comes the admin and the organisation, which allows each of our churches to fulfil the mission that God has called them to.